Hi, my name is Steve Porter. I own and operate a small whitetail deer farm in Lake Brunson, Minnesota. My wife Peggy and my 4 boys, Austin, Dylan, Brody, and Nolan, all enjoy our deer farm and help with all of the work. A big part of our family business is traveling with 3 live trophy whitetail bucks in a special made trailer to sports shows and schools all over the upper Midwest. This has been a great family business, and we're meeting a lot of good people. Let me tell you how I started and why I started this unique business. When I was a young boy, I absolutely loved the outdoors. When I was in school, I had all that I could do to listen to the teacher. I would stare out the classroom window and watch a robin hopping around the schoolyard. I would rather watch insects on the school window than listen to what the teacher had to say. I could not wait to get home and start exploring the woods and streams. It seemed that there was a new type of critter, bug, or fish waiting around every corner. One cold spring day, I found a huge beehive. It was in perfect shape. I decided to take it down and bring it to school for show and tell. What I did not know is that all of the bees were still in the hive and were patiently waiting for warm weather. When I brought the beehive to school, it took just a few hours of warm classroom weather for the bees to start crawling out of the hive. The teacher became really excited, and I got to go home early. I can still remember carrying that hive out of the school on a stick. When I got a little older, I started hunting. I would hunt rabbits, squirrels, ruffed grouse, pheasants, and even raccoons. My cousin Mike and I would spend an entire day walking through the woods, enjoying the color of the fall leaves, the smell of the damp woods, and the sound of an animal scurrying off in the distance. When we were actually able to harvest an animal or catch a fish, we could not wait to bring it home and have Mom cook it up in one of our favorite recipes. When I got a little older, the most incredible thing happened. I was invited for the first time to go deer hunting with my Uncle Dale. I'd sat around for years listening to men and older boys telling stories about hunting deer, and my time had finally arrived. You see, the whitetail deer was the most beautiful and magnificent animal in our part of the world. If a young boy could successfully harvest a deer, especially a buck, you were somehow mysteriously transformed from a boy into a master woodsman. Well, I did not get a deer my first year of hunting, and man was I let down. I had an opportunity at a deer running across a field at what seemed about 2 miles away. I missed my shot. Today, I know that it would have been a miracle for anyone using a 16-gauge shotgun to have hit that deer. It was just too far. The following year, I did get my first deer, and I have been hooked on deer hunting ever since. Every fall since then, I was really eager to get back into the woods and hunt whitetail deer. I would hunt as much as possible with family and friends, but then all of a sudden, time seemed to speed up. The next thing I knew, I was done with college, married, and working as a deputy sheriff in a career of law enforcement. I knew that I wanted a house out in the country with lots of wildlife. I bought 160 acres of wooded land with huge poplar trees, black bear, bobcats, moose, and plenty of deer. This land was perfect. It was like a dream come true. I started planting food plots, putting up trail cameras, tree stands, and decided not to harvest young bucks. I wanted to give them a chance to grow up, to reach maturity, before I could actually harvest them. I wanted to see, photograph, and enjoy big bucks on my property. I wanted to harvest a big old fat buck with big heavy antlers. My plan did work, a little. I harvested some nice bucks, but I noticed that a lot of the young bucks that I had been choosing not to harvest were going into my neighbor's land and then getting shot. Some of the young bucks that I had been watching were going out onto the highway and were getting hit by cars. I would find some of the young bucks dead on my property. They had been killed by timber wolves or cougars. This seemed so wasteful, as the young bucks were only partially eaten. One time, I even watched a guy shoot a young buck with a pistol in archery season just south of my house, and out of season. I was in my squad car and had been watching the guy in my binoculars, so I drove up to him and asked him what he was doing. The guy was wearing a camouflage outfit and was carrying a bow and arrow. I told the guy that I believed that he was the person that just shot the buck. The guy explained that he was only bow hunting and that he did not even have a rifle. I told the guy that I was going to pat him down for weapons. And when I did this, I found a .30-30 pistol hiding under his camel coat. I took the pistol away from the guy, and he confessed to shooting the buck. The guy stated that he was just tired of not getting any deer in rifle season, so he thought that he would get a head start on all of the other hunters. I took the guy to jail, and he wound up with a $2,000 fine, lost his $700 bow, lost his $600 pistol, and he could not hunt deer for 3 years. I was so discouraged that I could not aid a young buck in reaching maturity. I really wanted to see a big old fat mature buck. One day, while talking to John, a game warden friend, I learned that I could buy a buck fawn and raise it on my property. I could actually get a license from the Minnesota DNR to raise deer. I'd need to put up an 8-foot netting fence, have my property inspected, and then I could buy a deer from another deer farmer. I did everything that the Minnesota DNR told me to do, and soon bought my first fawn. I named the fawn Clyde. Clyde was about 4 weeks old, was being bottle fed, and weighed about 20 pounds. I paid $200 for him and drove home with Clyde curled up on my brother's lap in the front seat of my car. I had started a fascinating hobby, but I had really no idea what I was getting into. Prior to buying Clyde, I thought I knew a lot about deer. I had spent more time in the woods than anyone I knew. I considered myself an expert on deer. I was very knowledgeable and a successful deer hunter. Boy, was I wrong. I soon realized that there was an entire world concerning white-tailed deer that I knew nothing about. I had an opportunity to study deer for hours and hours every day, and that's exactly what I did. Well, I have now watched and studied deer since 1992. My fenced-in area went from 1 acre to 100 acres. I went from having just Clyde to having as many as 40 deer. My 100-acre pen has several nice food plots, 2 ponds, a coulee that flows in the spring, big oak and poplar trees, and plenty of room for my deer to roam on. 3 of the bucks that I own are Thor, Redwood, and Shifty. These 3 bucks are magnificent animals. They were bottle fed when they were born and are now exceptionally tame. I have been able to take these super tame bucks to numerous sport shows and to over 45 schools in the past few years. These bucks are a huge hit. People really enjoy being able to observe and study these rare animals on an up-close and personal level. I do bottle feed several buck fawns every spring. However, I have many deer being born that do not get bottle fed. The deer that are not bottle fed grow up on my 100-acre farm and live a life that is similar to that of an actual wild buck. These bucks are not truly wild, so let's just call these bucks spooky bucks for lack of a better term. The only real difference is that these spooky bucks are not getting hit by cars, killed by wolves, or being harvested by hunters when they are only 18 months old. If I want to see any of these spooky bucks in my property, I need to have my son set out a game camera in the pen and then hope to get a picture taken. These bucks are really secretive and often only move during the night. When some of these bucks start to get old, this severe 30-degree below zero weather is really hard on them. The teeth on these old spooky bucks can get worn out, and a buck with poor teeth cannot eat enough food. Bucks need enough food energy to stay warm. I have allowed my sons, a few friends, and recently paying customers to hunt these bucks. The hunters who did go hunting on my property were really excited. They thought it was a really unique opportunity to hunt a big, mature buck.
Hey Steve, I just wanted to say thank you for letting me hunt white-tailed deer on your property. I've been hunting deer for 30 years, and this is definitely the hunt of a lifetime.
They were also surprised to see how these bucks were just as leery and elusive as the ones that they had hunted in the wild. Hunting deer is a good method to controlling animal populations.